I've bantered back and forth about what to do with my pictures from Scotland. There are so many, and very few of them are any good. And I thought I would just sort of combine everything into this one video and then move on to other things. So I have picked out what I consider to be my favorite images. I have about 117 uploaded to Flickr. I'll put a link to that in the description below. You're welcome to go look at them. Please comment on them or give them a star or tell me they're trash or whatever you want to do. Some of them are not that great, but I just posted them all anyway. So I wanted to take you through today 17 of my favorite images. I'm going to talk just a little bit about them. I'm going to try to do it very quickly so the video is not very long, and I will put timestamps down below from picture to picture in case you want to skip around if you get bored. So here we go. In last week's video, I put this picture up. It was the very first picture I took after I got into Edinburgh. Checked into my hotel, was walking around. I saw this picture. I've edited it just a little more. In fact, all of these pictures are edited a little different than they are uploaded to Flickr. So just keep that in mind. I will talk about editing, what I did here in these edits. I'll talk about that in a future video. But I really liked this video because I liked the way I could create the light onto the bench. The bench was really the center point. And the way the speckled light comes in through the leaves of the trees, this picture is still just one of my favorites. Now, I did put this picture up on Instagram when I was walking around doing my live stream around St. Andrew in Edinburgh, my very first day there. My friend Phil Thatch said, "You better be sure and get me a picture of the Scott Monument." And so this is actually from up the street. The street goes uphill from the monument, which is how you're able to get all of that in sort of straight without too much keystoning effect. And I did very little editing of this. I think I brightened the whole image up just a little bit. I didn't do anything to highlight any of the other light in the image. It just sort of came out this way. And I really liked the way this turned out. I had wanted to go up to the top of the Scott Monument, but the day that I had set aside to do that, it was so misty and foggy, I wouldn't have been able to see anything, and that would have been a wasted effort. So that's still on my bucket list for the next time I go back to Edinburgh. Now, I really like this picture. And the reason I like it is because this bird's sitting on this guy's head. The light hit it just right, and that all of that was perfect. There were some birds flying around, and I was hoping I could get one of them in the picture, but I'm kind of glad I didn't when I was done. This is, I think, on Prince's Street, just down the street from the Scott Monument. This picture, I think, has to be my favorite of the entire trip. Now, I've been inside St. Mary's before. It is an active Catholic church, and you may see somewhere in here in the shadows some people sitting in the pews. People do come in here to pray and to meditate, and I didn't want to bother them, so I walked in. I took this shot. I took one other shot of just the altar area and walked out. But the light coming in, I need to go back and see if I can figure out what time of day this was, because the light coming in through the windows was just absolutely chef's kiss. I mean, I could not have asked for better lighting for this photo. And it's a beautiful, beautiful church to go through if you're ever in Edinburgh. Now, this house I have photographed before in color, obviously. Coming down through that little valley between those two hills is a waterfall, but the water was so low when I was in Scotland that very few of the waterfalls had much in them, so you really can't see anything there. But there's this little white house down here in the corner. It is owned by the Scotland Trust, I believe, at this point. It is a major tourist stop. The The car park was full when we went, all kinds of people walking around. And I just kind of walked away from everybody and got this shot with this sort of misty look across the top of the mountains. I think I could have brightened up that middle spot of the mountain a little more to make it pop maybe a little more, but, it's too late now. I'm not going to do that. This is the Sligachan Bridge. I think that's how you pronounce it. I can never remember. And again, it is a major tourist stop. Anytime you go to the Isle of Skye, it's one of the first things you will stop at. The road splits, so you can go one way to Portree and another way to where we were going, which is our hotel, the Hame on Skye. And again, it was a really misty morning. There was no sky to speak of, or no light to speak of, except this one strip here at the end of the bridge that sort of lit everything up a little bit. I wish, every time I look at this now, I wish I had brightened that mountain up in the background just a tad. I think it's so dark it overpowers the image. But this is still one of my favorite images. The people on the bridge give it a sense of scale, so you can kind of see how big it is. The bus over here in the background is actually driving down the road. It's not parked there. There is a main road just on the other side of the bridge. This was my first time to the Ferry Glen. I've been to the Ferry Pools before. I really don't have any need to go back. But the Ferry Glen was absolutely beautiful. And you drive in on this single track road. If you've never been to Scotland, a single track road is a one-lane road with two-way traffic. And so there are little pull-offs here and there. Whoever hits the pull-off first gets out of the way, lets the other car come through. And as we were coming in, we passed the parking lot and just kept driving. I wasn't really sure where we were going. And we got to the end of the road, which is a dead end into private property, and there's a little turnaround. The bus turned around and came back to park pointed out. But as we were driving between the parking lot and where we turned, we passed this. And I was like, there's no way I'm leaving this place without this reflection. Up here, this little mound right here in the middle at the top, you can just barely see what looks like maybe a dust spot. That's actually people that climb up to the top of that. Is an old ruined castle up there. I didn't go up there. I was too busy taking pictures of other things. This is that same spot, a little closer in. I was walked in. You can again see the people at the top of that little peak over here on the right. It's a little different reflection with the road coming through to give it some type of leading line. The sky's blown out, which is no problem for me. I didn't really care. There's a couple of sheep right here that really I couldn't figure out a way to highlight them to make them stand out, but they're also in the reflection. So this is definitely one of my favorite images from the trip. Now this picture, I mean, you have to really look at it, I think, to see what's here, because there are some boats out here in the water and they may get lost if you're not really paying attention. This is, I believe, just outside of the Talisker Distilery. And there is this beautiful, beautiful loch out there looking out across to the other side. And the water was just really, really calm and peaceful. And with the reflection in the water and the boats, this just became one of my favorites. It is hard to take a bad picture at the Quiraing. And that's where this is. This is, the most of the people are on the other side of that road. There is a path that leads up. You can actually walk all the way up to the Quiraing if you're there long enough. But then on the other side, this road leads back up to the left. It goes back up to the parking lot. So I just crossed the parking lot to a little abutment over here. You got this shot with the road in it with some cars to show you a sense of scale. The light is almost always beautiful on the Quiraing to brighten up certain areas. And way off in the distance where you see the other shoreline, if I'm not mistaken, that's the mainland of Scotland. This is one of the pictures I took outside of the cathedral in Inverness. I wanted to go inside the cathedral, but they charge £18 to go in, and I didn't have enough time to make that worth my while. So I took a few pictures outside. This one, obviously, I've transformed it, so I've straightened all the lines up, which is what I typically do with pictures like this. But again, I had just a little bit of light coming in on these sculptures and the front door, and I went in and I used a new editing technique that I'm learning to sort of brighten those areas up. I actually darkened the picture down from where it started so that those areas could brighten up a little bit for me. And cathedrals are just, I mean, that's my kryptonite. So obviously it's one of my favorite pictures. I think I've shared this picture out on Instagram already as well. And again, I've done a little editing to it since then, but this is on the Royal Mile. Off to the left will be St. Giles Cathedral, and then on up to the Edinburgh Castle. Down to the right will be Holyrood House. That's the Royal Mile. It's actually a little over a mile. But I just love these three phone booths, all covered in stickers and graffiti. And I happened to catch somebody taking a picture with their phone, and the lighting in the back hitting the buildings. I mean, this picture became one of my favorites almost immediately. This image was in the last video that I did as well. I showed how I sort of salvaged the edit, and maybe that's why it's one of my favorites. It's not a great picture, obviously, but the fact that I was able to save it maybe made it one of my favorites. This is the Witchery Shop, which is right near a restaurant pub called the Witchery, which is just before you get to the Edinburgh Castle. So if you're in Edinburgh and you're walking up Lawn Market to the castle, you will pass this little shop right here. After I had walked to the castle and then down to Haymarket, and I was making my way back to my hotel, I passed several little places, little alleyways and things with interesting things. And I came across this shot right here, and I knew I wanted a picture of this mural on the wall. I sort of wish that I had taken a second picture with this man a little closer, but I was trying not to be too obvious that he was in my shot. I should get over that, I know, but again, he's there sort of for a sense of scale, so you can see sort of how things look there. And again, it was early morning. There wasn't a lot of light, but it was starting to come through, and you can see it on the buildings in the background. And so I just really like this picture. I took several images inside St. Giles Cathedral, and they're up on the Flickr link that's down below. This was sort of my favorite, with all the various arches in the shot. This is looking across down at the bottom. You can see the music stands for the choir. Just over to the right, you will see the lectern at the bottom of that far right column. There's a couple of people there, but I was trying to get up high enough that I could get most of the people out of the picture. And with all of the different archways and the way the light was hitting, this, out of all the St. Giles pictures, this was my favorite by far. My last full day in Edinburgh, I finally had a typical Scottish morning, full of mist and fog, and it was almost noon before you could see very far. And so I took this shot. I kind of wish I had made a little more halo effect maybe on the lights. I think the fog was doing enough. Maybe that would have been overkill. But I tried to keep everything dark in this picture except for the lights. And, being a typical Scottish foggy morning, I was very thankful that I got this shot. This, again, is along the Royal Mile. And the last picture from today is from the Greyfriars Kirkyard. Kirkyard just simply means churchyard. This is the cemetery if you go off to the left here, to a second part of the cemetery, you'll find Thomas Riddle's grave, who became Lord Voldemort in, that's just to say that, I don't know, in Harry Potter. But again, this was on that morning with all of this fog and mist, and that just made it sort of the perfect shot for a graveyard. I took several pictures here that are up on the Flickr thing, but this one with the church in the background, I think, was my favorite. There's another one that is close, but I didn't include it in here. You can see that if you go to that link. And those are I took over 200 pictures. I wound up with 17 that I really like. That's huge. I wound up with 2 that I really, really like, and 1 that's my favorite. And the one that's my favorite is the image from St. Mary's Cathedral with that beautiful light coming in across the altar. So, let me know what you think in the comments. If you go to the Flickr page, be sure and pick out a picture or 2 that you like and give it a heart. Maybe leave me a comment on one if you want to. I would like to have some more engagement on my Flickr page. And that's it. We'll see you next time with something maybe that's not Scotland.